What's up, folks? We're back here at Inside Wrestling Truth, and we're going to do some more countdowns tonight. Before I get into my countdowns, as you seen last night, I did my top 50 greatest wrestlers of all time. But I made a few mistakes with that countdown. I left a few guys off, and I just want to replace them. I'm going to replace Sergeant Slaughter with Dory Funk Jr. How could I forget Sergeant Slaughter? I'm going to replace Bam Bam Bigelow with Nick Bockwinkel. And I'm going to replace the $1 Million Man. If you remember, replace Bob Backlund. No, I'm going to replace the $1 Million Man with Bob Backlund. Everybody with me? Cool. Alright, tonight we're going to do a couple top 10 lists. The first top 10 lists we're going to do are going to be managers. You know, we don't have that anymore, but back in the day, managers used to make the wrestlers look better and rock the house. But anyway, let's get into the countdown for the top 10 for the managers. Alright, at number 10, he started off as a manager and a bodyguard but became a wrestler, but I had to put him on here. And at number 10, he was a bodyguard for the $1 Million Man, and his name is Virgil. I know y'all know who Virgil is. He's not homeless, I met him. Number 9, Jive Soul Bro, Reverend Slick. If you remember Slick, he managed the Twin Towers, the Warlord, a couple other guys, but in the 80s, Slick was a real hot manager, you know, and I felt like he should be put on my list. Number 8, I'm going to go with Mr. Fuji. Remember Mr. Fuji? He managed Demolition, Thorn Express, Yokozuna, you know, guys like that. But Mr. Fuji, he also managed the Powers of Pain. But Mr. Fuji was a great manager. I always liked that. He was a heel manager. I like how he used his cane. I loved it when he was with Demolition. And then I loved when he went and we became the manager of Yokozuna. I thought that was real hot, you know. The Japan thing popping off there. I really like that. Number 7, I'm going to go with the Four Horsemen's manager, J.J. Dillon. Man, J.J. Dillon could get heat. He was a great manager. He fit in perfect with the Horsemen. He's really what kept the Horsemen together. He's kind of the glue for the Four Horsemen. If anybody remembers how popular the Four Horsemen were, they were one of the hottest groups of all time in wrestling. And a lot of that had to do with J.J. Dillon. Number 6, I'm going to go with the Louisville boy, Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette, you know, always carried a tennis racket. He managed the Midnight Express, Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. He was a consultant for Yokozuna. Really good talker. Really good heel manager. Really understood the business. So Jim Cornette's definitely on this list as well. Number 5, I'm going to go with the late Paul Bearer. I think what they did with the Paul Bearer gimmick with Undertaker was just magical. I think Undertaker in the beginning of his career wouldn't have blossomed him as much as he did without Paul Bearer. Because if you remember, Undertaker didn't do much talking, and Paul Bearer did all the talking. Before he was Paul Bearer, he was Percy Pringle. He was great then. He was great when he was Paul Bearer. And he'll truly be missed. Rest in peace, Paul Bearer. Number 4, we're going to go old school. I'm going to go with Freddie Blassie. Pencil Neck Geek. I've watched old videos of Freddie Blassie, and man, did he get some heat. He could really, he will make the crowd want to come out their seats and just crack him right in his face. I believe he was the first manager for Hulk Hogan. He managed Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, lots of guys. Freddie Blassie, though, good man, good manager, and he'll be missed as well. But I definitely had to have him at the top of this list. Number 3, Paul E. Dangerously, Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was an awesome manager. He also always had groups. I liked how he came out with the cell phone. He managed Steve Austin at first. Just a killer manager. We all know what he did as he evolutionized ECW. He was actually Sabu's manager at the beginning of that, and 9/11's manager. He managed Brock Lesnar. If you remember, Brock Lesnar was the next big thing, and then Paulie managed him. He managed Big Show, winning Kurt Angle. Paul Heyman has a mind for this business like no other, and that's why Paul Heyman is number 3 on my list of greatest managers. Number 2, Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart, probably one of the best antagonist managers of all time. If you grew up in the Louisville, Kentucky, Memphis, Tennessee area, you knew all about Jimmy Hart before he ever got to the WWE. He got to the WWE, he was awesome. Everybody remembers him for the megaphone and the colorful suits. Jimmy Hart managed everybody that was anybody in this business. He managed Hogan. He managed the Nasty Boys. He managed Money Incorporated, Natural Disasters, the Rougeau Brothers, the Honky Tonk Man, Greg the Hammer Valentine. I mean, he's managed them all. And Jimmy Hart, he is one of the best managers of all time. Glad to see Jimmy Hart in the WWE Hall of Fame because he definitely deserves it. And then my number 1 manager of all time is probably the number 1 manager on everybody's list, and that is Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bobby the Brain Heenan, if you know, he had the Heenan family, and he stole that from the serial killer Manson. I can't think of his first name. There was a Manson family, so Bobby Heenan wanted to have the Heenan family. And he was great on the mic. He was hilarious. He talked for his wrestlers. He's another guy that managed everybody. He managed Nick Botwinkle. He managed the Blackjacks, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, Haku, Harley Race, King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair. I know I'm missing some guys, but the point is that everybody Bobby Heenan managed, they shine. They shine. And Bobby Heenan has throat cancer right now. And when Bobby Heenan goes, they will truly miss a real legend. I remember sitting up as a child, 7, 8 years old, watching primetime wrestling, Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. That was some of the greatest shit I ever seen in television. The Weasel, Bobby the Brain Heenan, #1 on my manager list. Now our next list was another top 10, and it's the top 10 tag teams of all time. We don't get to see good tag teams anymore. But back in the day, 80s and 90s, tag teams was the main. Some tag team matches were main events. And that's what we need in wrestling right now. We need some good tag teams. But let me break down the top 10 tag teams on my list. Number 10, Money Incorporated. Remember Money Incorporated? That was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and IRS. They were managed by Jimmy Hart. They were tag champs. They had feuds with the Natural Disasters and Legion of Doom. Hulk Hogan and Beefcake. I really thought that Money Incorporated was a really great tag team at the time. Because both men could work, and both men were hated. Anybody that owes taxes, that don't pay their taxes, hates IRS. Number 9 is the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Saggs, also managed by Jimmy Hart. The Nasty Boys were hardcore wrestlers before hardcore wrestling was cool. Some of their memorable feuds were with the Legion of Doom, Money Incorporated, So and So. They held the tag belts a few times. One of my favorite tag matches was at SummerSlam 1991 when Legion of Doom beat the Nasty Boys. A lot of y'all might remember when WCW, the Nasty Boys, were fighting Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and they really started fighting each other. And Kevin Nash, I believe it was Kevin Nash, is the one that ended Jerry Saggs' career when he hit him in the back of the neck with a chair right after he had neck surgery. Nasty Boys, great team. Number 8, we're going to go to the Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. You want to talk about great chemistry in the ring, you go watch the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation. The Bulldogs were great. Davey Boy was power. Dynamite was crazy. The Dynamite Kid story is pretty sad. Took too many steroids. He can't walk now. As we know, Bulldogs passed on. Bulldogs are definitely on my list. Next, we have the Rock and Roll Express. I put the Rock and Roll Express on here because they were the first over face tag team that I can remember. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. If you're from the South like I am, you know who they are. They had magical feuds with the Horsemen, Midnight Express. I mean, the Russians. They definitely need to be on this list. And I even go out on a limb and say they need to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion. See, next on my list, number 6, Harlem Heat, Booker T and Stevie Ray. Two big muscle-bound brothers, claim to be from Harlem, but they're really from Texas. They they held WCW tag team titles. I don't know how many times. Uh, they had great feuds with the Steiners and the Road Warriors and all those teams of the middle '90s. I mean, of course they broke up and Booker T became a bigger star, but as a tag team on any list, top 10 list, you got to put Harlem Heat on there. Hulk Hogan, I'm coming for you, nigga. Number five, number five, number five on my list is the Hart Foundation. We all know about the Hart Foundation's feud. They had feuds with the Bulldogs that were classics. They even made the Rougeau brothers look good. They feuded with the Nasty Boys, Demolition. I could go on and on. Brett and Jim just had a knack for the tag team wrestling. They were great. We all know, just like Harlem Heat, Foundation did the same thing. Brett broke off and became the best wrestler of all time. I mean, some of those matches that the Hart Foundation and Demolition fought, I could watch them all day. They're just classic, just to watch them. The psychology and the ring work that they use against each other is just awesome. Just awesome. Just awesome. Number four, greatest tag team of all time. I'm going with the Dudleys, Bubba Ray and Devon. A lot of people knock them because how many times they've won the World Tag Team titles because they were in ECW, not fighting anybody. But that's not. I don't agree with that. They wrestled in WWE, in the TLC matches with Edge and Christian and the Hardys. That was awesome. They had feuds with Public Enemy, Raven, Tommy Dreamer. I mean, I could go on and on about the Dudleys, but the Dudleys are my number four tag team of all time, and you gotta respect them no matter what you think about them. Definitely. Number three. Number three tag team of all time is Demolition. A lot of people say that Demolition was biting the Road Warriors, but I don't see how. I mean, the Road Warriors were in the South. Demolition was in the North. Demolition had three members. Demolition had a whole different outfit than the Road Warriors. The thing about Axe and Smash is they could work good with anybody at any time. They were tag team champions 3 or 4 times. They definitely need to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I think they're one of the most underrated tag teams of all time. I met Demolition. They're cool guys. And in my eyes, they're the number 3 best tag team of all time. I mean, they could go, they could work, they were entertaining, their promos were sharp. And when that music hit, the crowd would go nuts. So Demolition is number 3 on my list. Number 2 on my list is the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner. They wrestled every. I'm not even going. They wrestled every tag team in this business. And the thing about Rick and Scott, they graduated from the University of Michigan. They were real wrestlers. A lot of people had problems working with them. Scott Steiner was the first one I ever see do the Frankensteiner. And I loved Rick Steiner where he acts like a dog. Hoo hoo hoo. That shit was cool. They held championship. They had the tag belts in Japan, WWF, WCW, ECW. Everywhere they went, they were tag champs. And every time you seen them wrestle, you knew you were going to get a hell of a show and a hell of a fight. And in my opinion, they could very well be number one on this list, but they're not. They're number two. Now let's go to number one. I'm sure y'all know who number one is. The number one tag team, in my opinion, ever, is the Road Warriors. Legion of Doom, Animal, and Hawk. They were big, they were bad. They come out with the spikes, they come out with the motorcycles, they came out with the face paint. They came out with that tough attitude, and that's just exactly how they wrestled. There was no technical style to the wrestling. They just beat people up, and they won the titles everywhere they went. The Road Warriors were the real deal. It's sad to see what happened to Hawk, but that's life. That's life. There's a lot of drugs in this business. If you take too many of them, you ain't gonna get back in the ring. But the Road Warriors were great. And I'm glad to see them in the WWE Hall of Fame. They're just one of those tag teams that nobody will ever forget. It's good stuff, man. They did some good stuff. I would like to have seen the Road Warriors and Demolition have a couple more feuds. You know. I would like to see the Road Warriors work Harlem Heat some more too. I also always wanted to see the Road Warriors in the NWO. I thought that would have been fresh, man. That would have been fresh. But yeah, that's all for my countdown tonight. Tomorrow I have probably one more top 10 countdown. Keep checking in. I'm gonna keep making you wait for the shoot interviews, and get your money and pay your bills. Peace.